Welcome back to another video from the camping kitchen. Today I'm going to use an old family favorite, an apple dumpling recipe that I have just had to modify slightly to be able to use in the Dutch oven. So our ingredients here that we're going to start with is a cup of margarine, 1.5 cups of brown sugar, a teaspoon of cinnamon, and a teaspoon of vanilla, and a cup and about a quarter of Mountain Dew. Now with that, we are going to use 1 pack of crescent rolls, and I, just because of personal preference, like to use an apple and a half or so here. The recipe actually calls for you to slice 1 apple into 8 pieces, but I usually do about 6 pieces per an apple here. Now this recipe with the sauce that you make will accommodate up to 16 apple dumplings. Here I'm going to make 8 because that's what my Dutch oven holds comfortably. When I do it at home, I use a 13x9 Pyrex, and I can usually get 14 to 16 in that Pyrex. So then of course we are going to be using our Dutch oven with our lid handle. I keep the tongs just on hand because I need them with the fire, or I may need them to move things around, a whisk, and a wooden spoon. So let's get started with apple dumplings over an open fire. So one thing I do want to note about this recipe, it is a sweet recipe, and a lot of people like to line their Dutch ovens with foil for recipes like this, and a lot of people won't even use their Dutch ovens because of how bad they can stick. As you can see, I am giving my Dutch oven one good seasoning here to help assist in that, but this recipe is thin enough that it doesn't usually stick in my Dutch oven. I have to be very careful and make sure I don't have heat from the bottom, and I use just heat from the top. So we're gonna let this season here for a few minutes, and then we'll get started. All right, I want you to see here, I have cleared a good hot spot for the Dutch oven, and I have my other ingredients ready, because this does kind of move fast here when you're working with a hot fire. So I have added the teaspoon of cinnamon and the teaspoon of margarine in with the 1.5 cups of brown sugar, so that as soon as my butter is melted, I can add those in and kind of let this thicken up a little bit, because it will happen quickly. Okay, so we've got the 2 sticks of margarine, which is 1 cup here. And I am going to add the brown sugar, cinnamon, and vanilla. All right, just mix this in here. Tried to get my Dutch oven as level as I could here in this spot. It's not perfect, but it is a good hot spot. Now this takes about 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes I guess, depending on how hot your spot is. You do need to keep stirring this. You don't want to just leave this and go. You want to keep an eye on it and stir it and let it thicken up a little bit and get the butter and everything mixed in together. So we're gonna leave you for a second while we do that, and check back in just a minute. All right, so you can see everything has come together now, and we have a nice mixture here of the brown sugar and the butter. And what we're going to do And I went ahead and did this part because if we were trying to do it with a one-man show here, I would not be successful. But I have wrapped the apple slices with the crescent rolls. And as you saw in the beginning of the video, I use either red or green apples. I do try to stay away from the mushier Red Delicious and get a kind of crisper apple for this if I'm using a red, like a Honey Crisp or something. And then the green apples, of course, they are peeled, and I sliced mine into about 6 slices per an apple. Like we said previously, the recipe itself does say to use 8 slices from 1 apple. So what we're going to do now is place these into the mixture. And at home, when you're doing this, if you're using like a Pyrex, you have your dumplings here in the pot and you pour this mixture over. So what we're going to want to do here in just a second is make sure we get some of the juice here, the butter brown sugar mixture, over the top of these. Let's get these spread out a little better so we can get the last one in here. So here's what we have. So what I'm actually going to do is flip these little boogers over to get the cinnamon mixture now on top of them also. Cinnamon and brown sugar and butter here with a little bit of vanilla in this. So just flip them over and then they're coated. And I am working off the fire right now. Said this brown sugar mixture is very delicate. If I had flame coming underneath it. Now, with the Mountain Dew, I have about 1.25 cups here. And you want to pour that around the edges and not directly on, I did get a little on there, but not directly on the dumplings. I'm going to try to get a little here in the middle. In there. All right, so now we are ready to put the lid on and get this baking. Again, the first thing before I even start here, I want to acknowledge is that I am not going to put any heat underneath this. Like I said, with a high sugar content, I don't want it to stick to my Dutch oven. All right. We are ready to go. I do want to make a point. It is very important to have this level with this recipe with the liquid. And it's also important I have moved it away from the direct fire so that it's just baking in the Dutch oven. So we're going to add the lid. And load it up with coals. Alright, here we go with getting the coals. And one thing I've noticed with my fire right now is I am running low on coal, so I'm going to want to add some kind of arm size wood here to this so that as the apple dumplings are cooking, because this recipe does take about an hour in the Dutch oven, make sure I've got an ample supply of coals. And I load my lid up and I go by the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, ouch, trying to watch the temperature. As I'm not using charcoal bricks, it's not a simple, oh, I have 12 bricks on here and the temperature of my Dutch oven should be around 350, 400 degrees. It's not that simple. What I have learned is that I use my hand to check the temperature. Between 350 and 400, somewhere between a 4 to 6 second holding it close and then an ouch where you've got to pull it away. So 1, 2, oh, that is a little hot. So I'm going to want to remove some of these coals to lessen the heat, get it down a little. I'd say we're around 500 right now here because that was quick. So just gonna knock some of them off here, especially some of the bigger ones. Away. Give this just a second here. And I'll check it here in just a minute again. Now, with this being a one-man show today, I have already cleared the lid of coals. I needed to replace them. I'm going to show you here what this looks like. They are cooking real good. Put the lid back on and we're going to load it back up with coals for about another 40 minutes. It's been about 20, maybe 25 minutes so far. Alright, so let's check these apple dumplings. Oh, they look beautiful. Alright, so we're going to take these out and we will have apple dumplings here in just a minute. This is our apple dumpling cooked in the Dutch oven over an open fire.